What's up, chat? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are reacting to Game Theory, Your Mind is Broken, Subliminal. It is from the game Theorist, also known as Game Theory. It came out 1 hour ago, so I'm so excited since Subliminal is one of my favorite games. At this point, I love the game. It got too much hate. I know it got updated where stuff got much easier, but I love this game.
Are you suppressing
let's get right into it.
Trauma? Worried you can't move on and be happy? Scared it will haunt you forever? Concerned that if you don't, you'll be hunted down by a monstrous version of your favorite childhood mascot and brutally murdered over and over again? No, just me. Hello, Internet!
Alright.
Welcome to Game Theory, the show that records the joyful memory of you subscribing. It's always nice to...
Right. Am I subscribed? I'm subscribed.
relive happy memories, especially when you're having a bad day. It can be nice to reminisce of simpler times. Like when my brother and I would go and play video games all day and never leave the house. No responsibilities, nothing. But for some people, the past can bring up some less enjoyable memories, to the point that even the good memories are tainted by negative emotions. That, my friends, is the premise of the new indie horror game, Subliminal. A backrooms-inspired psychological horror game where you travel through memories to try and avoid the looming feelings of despair and loneliness. As far as mascot horror games go, Subliminal has a lot of the classic tropes. Black goo, creepy mascot, nostalgic locations, you know, the usual stuff. But much like I was talking about in our meta mascot horror video a few weeks ago, this game has got a number of things going for it that do separate it from others we've seen before. For starters, the premise is just fascinating. It combines things like the Stanley Parable with a narrator you can listen to or ignore, but rather than exploring an actual location, we're diving into the mind of our player character. These places are from their memories, which means things can twist, evolve, change. We can't trust what we're seeing because when we turn around, it might be gone. It also has some of the most impressive graphics I've seen in a mascot horror game. Plus, there's
the graphics of this game is genuinely unbelievable. Like, the graphics are so good, bro. Like, it has one of the best graphics I played in a horror game.
Puzzles. Now, mascot horror games are not strangers to puzzles. I mean, that was one of the things I liked about Poppy Playtime to begin with. But these puzzles are cranked up to 11. Some have even said these are too challenging, and they may not be wrong, but hey, I'll take it over another Simon Says puzzle. Finally, there's the story.
For real.
One complaint I've seen online is that there's barely any plot or lore to this game, and that's true if you...
There is a lot. Oh, I just turned British because of that comment. There is a lot of lore and story. Y'all are saying there's not a lot of lore and story. You just think that's your mind and stuff. There is a lot of lore and story. With Lily, the childhood friend of Caleb, there is a lot. Yeah. Y'all just gotta see there is a lot of lore and story. Like Five Nights at Freddy's. Like Five Nights at Freddy's is a different like level of a lot. Like that's like just the king of lore. Not like backrooms and shit, but there's a lot for a newer game. Also not as much as Poppy Playtime, but there's a lot for a newer game. I'm not gonna lie.
You don't study all the details left in each room, explore every hidden pathway, and
yes, that's what I mean. And I didn't even explore everything, and I still saw it. I know I'm doing a video on exploring everything, but yeah, let's just continue.
Full endings. If you do that, and throw in a bit of psychology along the way, there is a ton of lore that explains the true story of the game.
See?
What our character is going through, and what the best method is to help them feel joy again. And while the answer may not feel like the best approach, it's the only way to put an end to the trauma. So lie down in this chair, theorists, as we take a journey through the deep memories hiding in Subliminal. I'm just gonna place this here. And let's see if this brings up any feelings or memories, shall we?
Base 44 super agents. Careful, there's no going back. No setup. Just say...
But what happens when three people sit around a cauldron and debate the spiciest fakes we can find? This is dead wrong.
If you're going from like a vibes perspective, I was putting that DS under the pillow.
Think of putting my PC under the pillow?
How many Star Trek movies are there? Can you tell me why geese are so angry all the time?
Welcome to Just a Theory, the show where your favorite YouTube personalities compete in trivia and challenges.
But not without a healthy dose of wild card chaos.
Hi, my name is Tom.
I'm Ty.
My name is Yossi.
Welcome to Insider Theory, the show that takes a deep dive into the lore of Theorist itself. We decided to do an updated timeline. When we finished, it ended up being 40 pages.
I don't know games. I, Amy, play my friends' favorite games. And hopefully that can help me become a better gamer.
That's about to take us
Present the one is
a new fantasized theories where we don't have to worry about relevance or algorithms, just stuff that we're passionate about. Subreddit, so to keep upload cup of coffee up. Wait, was that the right tape? Oh, I'm so sorry. Just let me find here we go. This should be the right one. The game starts with you in an empty space with a voice speaking to you.
I am your conscious, your sense of direction. Your name is Caleb, and this vast void of nothingness that we're currently floating in is your mind.
Conscience describes Caleb's mind as a bit gummed up with negative emotions, and so the brain is in maintenance mode. To help, Caleb needs to bring more joy to the surface by recalling memories and transporting them there. This allows him to travel to a water park, a bounce house, and a play place. Places full of joy and absolutely nothing scary or ominous, right? Well, not exactly. While Caleb tries to recall these memories, he is continually distracted, appearing in empty backroom-style hallways and corridors and your dingy childhood home. And within these joyful memories, you are chased by a horrifying monster. By looking at the Steam achievements, we can tell that this guy's name is Smile. But naming him doesn't exactly make him any less terrifying. Don't worry though, Conscience is here with Caleb to help guide him to the right path, reminding him that Smile is not really real and so should just be ignored. Conscience wants to help you remove the gunk from the joyful memories and load up your memory meter so that you can feel happy once again. That is the main goal of the game. But if you pay attention to the things Conscience says and the paths we are told not to go down, it's clear what's really going on. The very first room you transport to is your childhood basement. It doesn't look great and
Our memories here and their corresponding feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and soul-crushing guilt are rather inconvenient.
Conscience doesn't want us to be here, and whatever is in here is apparently not good for Caleb to remember.
I know why, but I'm not gonna tell y'all. I'm not gonna tell y'all yet. Y'all gotta watch this video, but I already know why. I saw it from Fake News, I think. I'm not sure, but I already know why.
The same thing happens later when you try and go into a door labeled deep storage.
Caleb, please, no, not there. This isn't where we need to go.
But if you ignore Conscience and go through the door, you can see black streaks across the floor. And the further into deep storage you go, the more of this black goo there is.
Oh, rotten. There's no real danger to it, of course, but it is unfortunately quite unpleasant. Certainly not the kind of thing we want crowding this lovely memory.
Black goo seems to be Caleb's negative emotions that Conscience wants to remove so that we can be filled with joy again. The fact that deep storage has it all over the walls tells us that there's something in here that Conscience wants Caleb to forget. Something deep in the recesses of Caleb's mind that is causing his mind to be gummed up. And after our first encounter with Smile, Conscience gives us a clue as to what that might be. After running into Smile in the play place, we get distracted and go on a bit of a detour. Once we get back on track, Conscience addresses the issue with Smile.
These intrusive thoughts and their accompanying feelings of loneliness, guilt, and existential dread are in fact not real and bear no truth or substance whatsoever.
This is the same thing Conscience said when Caleb recalled the memory of his childhood basement. Feelings of guilt and loneliness. This is what has Caleb's brain going into maintenance mode. Something in Caleb's past, in his deep memory, is affecting his mental state. His trauma has manifested in Smile, and every memory is now tainted by the trauma that haunts him. Which is why Conscience is trying to make you ignore Smile, to not go down the paths and bring up these traumatic memories, and to try and focus on the joyful ones. Conscience is healing Caleb of childhood trauma. Studies have found that by recalling autobiographical positive memories, it lowered cortisol levels, reduced stress, and improved mood if you were feeling sad. However, while this sounds like a good idea in theory, in psychology theory, the problem is brains are complex, and the memories of joy that Caleb has at the water park, play place, and bounce house are not isolated just as joy. Memories are accompanied by context. How old Caleb might have been, why was he there, and who was he there with? This brings
Who was he there with? Remember that.
those memories and the ones attached to them, good or bad, to our mind as well. But there is some hope for this method of dealing with trauma. The brain
Also, I did not watch this video yet.
is able to train itself to focus on the positive parts of a negative memory, allowing the brain to essentially update the emotional tone of that memory. This can be done by deliberately ignoring the negative parts of the memory, which is exactly what Conscience is trying to get Caleb to do. When Smile appears, we are told to just ignore it. And if you don't look directly at Smile in the play place, they disappear and a different path is opened up. Studies even show that the prefrontal cortex can send stop signals to
Wait, that works? You can just ignore him? What? I did not know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
hippocampal retrieval. Essentially, our brains
Gotta
can
do that.
suppress
Maybe there's the
unwanted
underending.
memories so much that we reduce the ability to even retrieve them. This is what is going on in deep storage. Caleb has managed to push down this trauma into parts of his mind where he can't easily retrieve it. And Conscience wants to keep it that way. By ignoring it and focusing on the joy, we are doing this update, removing the painful parts. I just want to be happy. But as we see, no matter how hard they try to suppress it, Caleb keeps recalling these negative memories. So perhaps this approach of avoidance, while documented as possibly working, may not be the best approach for dealing with Caleb's specific trauma. Thankfully, Caleb does explore other options throughout the game, and when he does, we see how each one leads to different results regarding his mental health. Another set of studies show that by fixating and ruminating on negative traumatic experiences, it can exaggerate them and cause anxiety and guilt to worsen. We see this happen in the ending titled Rotten. We've established that this muck is the negative memories and the trauma that plagues Caleb's joy-filled moments, which is why Conscience advises us to avoid following the paths covered with it. But if you go full Stanley Parable, ignore Conscience, and go down one of these routes, Caleb uses a TV to transport himself back to his childhood home. And as you explore, Smile is lurking behind the door, triggering an intense game where intrusive thoughts are frantically knocking on the doors around the house. It becomes progressively harder to keep all the doors closed and keep the lights on. More black goo appears and Conscience gets more aggressive towards you.
No! What are you doing? Turn the TV off! You're ruining it!
But eventually, the knocking stops and the path down the hall is opened. As you go through the door, you enter a void with nothing but a distant door. As you hear a knock, the door approaches you and you catch a glimpse of a tape recording of a man and a few other short moments. This is what happens if Caleb chooses to dwell on the trauma. He gets to the point where all he can think about is that trauma, exactly like the studies showed. The CRT TV, which leads Caleb here, even has the word rotten written on the back of it. But as we've seen, recalling joyful memories isn't working either. The brain is just too complex and it's hard to separate the negative triggers from a memory, and so you might get led down a darker route. Each memory is tainted with a reminder of Caleb's trauma, and as he has proven, he struggles to focus on the good and dwells on the bad, which leads to another approach Caleb can take in the game. Across the game, there are these large levers labeled erase that you can pull. Doing so hurts Conscience.
Oh! Caleb!
I can see you're curious, but please, let's not interact with any more mysterious switches.
But in addition to that,
I pulled one of that in the waterworks. I pulled one of them.
Items from the room, kids' toys, inflatable items, that sort of thing. It seems like these items are what Caleb associates with his trauma, and so is trying to suppress the emotions so aggressively that they are essentially erased from his memory. People with PTSD or other traumatic experiences have been known to do this. Rather than ignoring the trauma, Caleb is trying to erase it entirely. That sounds like a good idea, right? But Conscience seems to think otherwise, because although this feels like the only way to remove the pain, there can be larger knock-on effects. If you find all the levers in the game, you end up walking down a storage room hall, and each door has a year on it. If we've been slowly erasing trauma-triggering memories, I would bet money that 2016 is the year the trauma event occurred. But at the end of the hall is a large room with many screens and a large erase lever. Conscience tries to convince you not to pull it, but when you do...
Wait, no, not everything. Please, Caleb, this isn't what I meant. I can find another way. I can. Please, no.
Does he erase his whole memory? What? That's the ending, right?
Some studies have found that for people who suffer from PTSD, their general memory has been affected by their desire to suppress the negative ones. Remember, the brain is complex and memories are intertwined. One is associated with another, and by suppressing one, you may suppress all the others associated with it, resulting in long-term memory issues and even amnesia. Caleb's attempt to forget the trauma is leading to him losing his entire memory. So that option is a bust too, but that leaves us with one more ending, Into the Pit.
Oh, we got
you get
that
this
one.
ending if you play the game regularly, following Conscience's advice and don't venture down any secret paths. After continually becoming distracted by Smile, Conscience decides the only way to stop this distraction is to dispose of it completely. You send Smile down a shaft, and now you can return to the joyful memories and continue your mission of being happy. But when you open the door, it's bricked up. Not like that. Get your...
What do you mean by that, bruh? What do you mean it's bricked up, buddy? What do you mean it's bricked up? We all know you did that joke because you mean that literally, huh? Alright.
being happy. But when you open the door, it's bricked up. Not like that. Get your mind out of the gutter. Anyway, Conscience gets pretty mad at this point.
No. This can't be right. I've done it.
Sure
right.
thing.
I've corrected everything you've messed up, every mistake, every misdirection, every distraction you've entertained. I fixed it all. Why do you insist on defying me?
We're just trying our best, man. While Conscience tries to figure out a way back to the joy-filled memories, Caleb goes his own way, wading through webs of black goo until he finds himself in a large space with conveyor belts everywhere and fragments of other memories, chairs, wardrobes, washing machines, TVs. As Caleb goes through here, we hear Conscience in the distance yelling.
Caleb, stop! There's nothing for you here.
But as Caleb explores deeper, Smile appears, and the chase sequence ends with them catching Caleb and attacking. Now, this ending might seem vague, but there is a lot to unpack here, starting with the brick wall. Despite Conscience being in charge here, there seems to be another force at play, blocking the path Conscience is so dead set on following. And in the mind, there is something that can take executive control without the Conscience being aware, and that is...
So this game is actually based on like real life things. That's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy, like how our mind is like that, bro.
The unconscious. The unconscious mind consists of mental processes occurring outside of awareness. It's a place where random things are recalled in an unorganized manner, known as implicit memory. Stuff just gets recalled involuntarily when met with certain stimuli. In fact, 95% of our brain is driven by the unconscious mind. The space that we travel to is littered with random items on conveyor belts from other memories, like trees from the play place, a couch from the house, and a water slide. It's not organized in a space, it's just scattered everywhere. This is the unconscious part of Caleb's mind, and that is what is blocking the way to the good memories. And it's why Smile is still down here despite the fact we disposed of them. Memories can't just be easily erased as they are in the game. What really happens is the more we suppress a memory, the memory becomes less consciously available, but it still leaves traces that influence thought, emotion, or later perception within the unconscious mind. So when we disposed of Smile, they weren't gone completely, but have ended up in the unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind is now taking control and forcing Caleb to access the suppressed trauma and address it head on. But that can't end well, right? Choosing to dwell on the trauma ended up making things worse in the rotten ending, and that's true, but there's a nuance between this approach and the rotten ending. In the rotten ending, Caleb is ruminating on the trauma. Ruminating is described as deeply thinking about something, but Into the Pit is different. This approach is something doctors actually do with trauma victims. Rather than teaching them to forget trauma, knowing that may never happen, they use exposure-based therapies. You see, avoidance helps keep trauma alive, but confronting it in a way that doesn't dwell on the feelings surrounding the trauma can actually heal the person's mental health. Scientists have done this by bringing up patients' deeply suppressed memories so that the trauma can be fully understood and dealt with, rather than only remembering fragments. And the patients that have gone through this method have found that bringing suppressed trauma into memory actually allows them to function better. This is what Caleb is doing in this ending, and there is one piece of evidence that proves definitively that this ending is the canon ending, and that's the load screen. There you can load up specific save points of the game.
Yeah, look, we did this way. We did this.
Path and how different choices choices lead different ways. See, Into the Pit ending is the only ending memory that has an arrow continuing forward towards chapter 2. And the reason this is the only way to continue the game is because it's the only way Caleb can truly move on and feel joy again, by facing trauma, bringing back suppressed memories, and dealing with it. But I have one last surprise for you, theorists, because despite all this analysis, we still don't know what Caleb's trauma is. We've seen black goo and scary monsters, it's clearly related to his childhood, and we know it took place sometime in 2016. But other than that, it's just vague trauma. However, I am certain that we can figure it out thanks to small fragments in each location, starting with the first room, your childhood basement. There's a mini fridge where you can spell out your name and look inside, but there are some more red letters around
you can
the
spell
room.
Lily.
Putting them on the fridge helps to spell the name Lily, which makes black goo appear all over the inside of the fridge. So Lily is likely the source of the trauma. The conscience said this room is associated with loneliness. If Lily is part of this room, which we can see from the blackboard that says C and L, Caleb and Lily, she was probably another child in our lives, a sister maybe. Throughout
You know what? I'll just tell. She died, bro.
the game, we see two
I'm just saying it. I'm just spitting it out. She died.
silhouettes of children running around. This is Caleb and Lily. But these feelings of loneliness must be because she is no longer here. If you go through the deep storage room, you'll still end up at the play place. But there is a noticeable difference in something Conscience says. When you meet a balloon called Walter, he is described as
an integral and fundamental part of our childhood.
Yeah, because like that's supposed to be like Lily, you know.
Moment, you'll get to actually hold him again.
But this reaction changes if you travel through deep storage and begin to remember your traumatic memories. Now, when meeting Walter, Conscience says,
you'll get to actually hold her. Excuse me. Let's move on.
Walter isn't just a representation of our joy, it also represents Lily. Every time we see red stuff, it has to do with Lily. Back in deep storage, you find a door with red text over it that says Lily. Go into the room and you'll be thrown out, only to hear a girl crying, and a TV is thrown out of the room too. All of the memories Conscience wants Caleb to avoid end up having something to do with this girl Lily. She is the reason our mind is gummed up.
See?
At first I figured
it's because
Lily
she's dead.
died by some evil force and Caleb is grieving the loss because, you know, it's an indie horror game. But there are some other clues that suggest something else is going on here. The first is, once again, in deep storage. When you exit the elevator, there's a loud banging on the door.
What did you do?
What did you do? This suggests Caleb
What?
is responsible for the trauma he's feeling, and Conscience confirms this when we enter our basement.
Our memories here and their corresponding feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and soul-crushing guilt are rather inconvenient.
Wait, so what did Caleb do to Lily? Maybe is that like Lily's dad or something? Like, what the hell?
He says soul-crushing guilt. And as we've already established,
Or
this is where
dad,
Caleb
or
and
their
Lily
dad.
were together. Based on how deep this trauma goes, Lily is likely dead, but it is Caleb that is responsible for it. Or at least...
Oh! I knew she was dead, but responsible? What? You're telling me Caleb, or technically we killed Lily? What? That's crazy.
He believes he is. This is the root of Caleb's trauma, and the reason he can't escape it is because Lily was such an important part of his childhood, and it was his fault this happened. We even know where it happened thanks to Smile. We first encounter Smile in the play place, and when we do, Conscience reminds us
These intrusive thoughts and their accompanying feelings of loneliness, guilt, and existential dread are in fact not real.
Smile is also associated with Caleb's feelings of guilt. But if you look around the play place and the bounce house, you will find pictures of something else. A cuddly character with a big smile. This is the actual Smile character. But Caleb's mind has twisted it into a more monstrous version because it's here that the Lily incident occurred. While other memories that remind Caleb of Lily have muck in them, the play place has a literal monster of guilt manifested, which is why Smile only appears in the play place and the bounce house. Something happened here in 2016. Maybe Caleb and her got into a fight Maybe he pushed Lily too hard and she fell. Admittedly, that's conjecture. The specifics are unclear. But what I am sure about is that even if he meant to push her or even hurt her, he didn't mean for her to lose her life because of it. But I'm sure we'll get to learn all about that as we dive deeper into Caleb's unconscious mind in Chapter 2. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
World premiere on Game Theory.
Eventually, we will.
Yo! W video, bro. Yo, I didn't think because yo, I didn't think that we might have killed. I knew that Lily was dead. I knew that Lily is what's causing like the trauma for Caleb because something happened to Lily, and I said she was, and I knew she was dead. But I didn't know we killed Lily. I didn't know that. I thought, huh? Yo, W video though by Game Theory, the Game Theorist. W video, go check it out, bruh. Also, I commented. Yeah, W video. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.